Good day and welcome to Scriptures Unlocked. In this presentation, I'll be continuing my series on the mark of the beast. And this presentation, I'll be looking at the beast from the sea, which is a look at Revelation chapter 13. However, before looking at that, I'd like to take a quick review of Revelation chapter 12, which leads into Revelation chapter 13. So before addressing Revelation 13, it's important to set the foundation and lay the background by looking at what transpired in Revelation 12, which really is divided into three parts or three sections. The first part of Revelation 12 is from verse 1 to 6. The second part is from verses 7 to 12. And the third and final part of Revelation 12 takes into account verses 13 to 17. So the first part gives us the Old Testament church, which gave birth to Jesus, and we know that Jesus was born in 4 BC. It also speaks about his ascension, which occurred in AD 31, and then the persecution of the church during the Dark Ages, which lasted for 1,260 years. So this is what we are told in Revelation 12, verse 1. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Right off the bat, this woman represents the church, Israel, and not Mary, as some people teach. This woman that John saw in vision is a picture of the Old Testament church, clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. If you remember your Old Testament history, Joseph had a dream. He saw 11 stars, the sun and the moon bowing down to him. And his father interpreted the dream, and he said that the sun represented himself, Jacob, and the moon represented his mother, and the 11 stars his brothers. So the 12 stars here represents the 12 tribes of Israel. This woman was clothed with the sun, and in Malachi chapter 4, Jesus is called the Son of Righteousness. So this woman, this church, was clothed with the righteousness of Christ. And the moon, she was standing upon the moon, and the moon, as we know, reflects the light of the sun. So this church, Israel, was supposed to reflect the light of Christ to the surrounding nations, just as all Christians are supposed to do, which is why Jesus, when he came on earth, said, "Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." Notice verse 2. And she, the woman, being with child, cried. So the child, who we know is going to be Christ, was not yet born, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And then in steps another wonder. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. And behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And verse 5 says, "And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto God and to his throne." So here in verse 5, we see where Christ was born. And in the second part of the verse, we see where his ascension is mentioned, where he was caught up unto God and to his throne. So here is a picture of the one that John saw in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, heavily pregnant, with 12 stars upon her head. She is standing upon the moon. And before the woman was a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. His tail drew a third of the stars. So this is what John saw. And this is what happened in history. So John was actually looking back in history and seeing what happened to Israel, what happened to Christ as soon as he was born. So the dragon refers primarily to the devil and Satan. So the great red dragon refers primarily to the devil and Satan. But in the context of Revelation 12, verse 3 to 4, it's referring to pagan Rome, through whom Satan was working to kill Jesus when he was born. And we can see this in Matthew 2, 16 to 21. When Jesus was about to be born, the wise men came to Israel to seek the child who was going to be born king of the Jews. Herod, who was installed by the Roman Senate as the king of Judea, was a very self-conscious individual and didn't want anybody threatening his throne. So he, under guise, said to the wise men that when you have found his birthplace, tell me so that I come and worship him as well. But he had nefarious intentions. And when the wise men were warned of God not to return to Herod, this is what Herod did. Matthew 2, verse 16 onwards. Herod slaughters babies. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, in Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning. Rachel weeping for her children and would not be comforted because they are not. But when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought the young child's life. And he arose and took the young child and his mother and came into the land of Israel. So that was what John saw in that vision, where this great red dragon stood before the woman just as she was about to deliver. And as soon as Christ was born of the Virgin Mary, Herod tried to assassinate him. So instead of going spear fishing, he went net fishing because he did not know where this child was going to be born. So he slaughtered all male children from 2 years under with the hope that he would catch Jesus in the dragnet. But that wasn't to be. So that was what John saw in that particular vision. So Revelation 12 verse 9 tells us clearly who the great dragon is. The Bible tells us clearly, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan. So which is why I said the dragon primarily refers to the devil and Satan. But the devil works through nations. He works through individuals. And at this point in time, he was working through pagan Rome, through Herod, to kill baby Jesus. So the earthly powers through whom Satan accomplishes his plans are also referred to as a dragon. So Egypt and Babylon, which persecuted God's people, were classified as such as well. In Jeremiah 51 verse 34, notice what we are told about Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had devoured me. He had crushed me. He had made me an empty vessel. He had swallowed me up like a dragon. He had filled his belly with my delicates. He had cast me out. And Ezekiel 29 verse 3 also likens Pharaoh, king of Egypt, as a great dragon. Speak and say, thus saith the Lord Jehovah, behold, I am against thee, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great dragon that lieth in the midst of his rivers, which had said, my river is mine own, and I have also made it for myself. So we can see here that the devil and Satan is primarily referred to as the dragon. But nations or earthly powers through whom he works and operates are also called a dragon because they share the same spirit. Satan is also referred to as a serpent because of his cunning deceptions and lies. So the serpent and the dragon are apt descriptions of the devil. Notice what we are told about the serpent. Genesis 3 verse 1, the first encounter with the serpent. Now the serpent was more subtle, more cunning, more crafty than any beast of the field which Jehovah God had made. In Genesis 3 verse 13, notice how the devil operates, or the serpent. And Jehovah God said unto the woman, what is this that thou hast done? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. So the serpent, the devil, is very cunning. He uses a lot of guile. Isaiah 27 verse 1 says this, in that day, Jehovah with his sore and great and strong sword shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. So Leviathan is another name for the devil. So we can see here that the devil is referred to as a dragon, is referred to as a serpent. And the woman, who is the church, fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared of God that they should feed her there 1,203 score days. So this is the same woman mentioned in Revelation 12 verse 1 to 2, but at a different stage of her existence. during the 1260 years of papal persecution between 538 AD and 1798. So that was the first section of Revelation chapter 12. The second section gives us a flashback of the first war in the universe and takes a look back at what transpired after the cross when Christ completely cast out the devil from heaven. Revelation 12 verse 7 onward says this, "And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." So that was the second portion, which gives us a flashback of what took place with that war in heaven. And later on, when the devil was cast out from the celestial courts, he could no longer have access to the heavenly courts to accuse the saints before God day and night. Jesus became the new representative of earth after his death, burial, and resurrection and ascension. He now stands as earth's representative in the heavenly council. So the final part of Revelation 12 shows the persecution of the church during the 1260 years and how God protected the woman. Notice what we read in Revelation 12, verse 13 onwards. "And when the dragon, who is the devil, saw that he was cast out unto the earth, he persecuted the woman, which brought forth the man-child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time, and times, and a half a time, from the face of the serpent." And we looked at in the previous presentation that this period of time, of a time, times, and a half a time, is equivalent to 1,260 years. "And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened their mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth." Notice, viewers, that the water as a flood came out of both the mouth of the serpent and the dragon, which means that it was through lies and deceptions that the crusades and inquisitions were waged against God's people in the Dark Ages. The devil worked through papal Rome to persecute the woman, and the flood represents the military arm of the state that was used by the Roman Catholic Church to do its bidding. Notice what the scriptures define the floods to be. Psalm 18 verse 4, "The sorrows of death compassed me, and the floods of ungodly men made me afraid." Isaiah 59 verse 19 says this, "So shall they fear the name of Jehovah from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the spirit of Jehovah shall lift up a standard against him." So notice as well, viewers, how the army of Egypt is described by God in the Old Testament as a flood that seeks to destroy. Jeremiah 46 verse 1 and 2, and then verse 7 and 8 tells us this. "The word of Jehovah which came to Jeremiah the prophet against the Gentiles, against Egypt, against the army of Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, which was by the river Euphrates in Carchemish, which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, smote in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah. Who is this that cometh up as a flood, whose waters are moved as the rivers? Egypt riseth up like a flood, and his waters are moved like the rivers. And he said, I will go up, and will cover the earth. I will destroy the city and the inhabitants thereof." Therefore, viewers, the flood represents an army of the enemy and ungodly men, but the earth helped the woman. The earth here represents America, which became a place of refuge for believers who were fleeing persecution in Europe during the Dark Ages. The pilgrims escaped to a place where they could worship God according to the dictates of their own consciences. Therefore, America became a nation without a king and a church without a pope, which is essentially the separation of church and state. The United States of America was established upon two fundamental principles: civil liberty and religious liberty. And this was adopted in the Bill of Rights on December 15, 1791, as the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Notice what the First Amendment says: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And remember, when you looked at Daniel chapter 3, remember that Nebuchadnezzar sought to establish a one world religion where every single person in the plain of Dura were coerced in bowing down to this golden image that he had set up. So that was the establishment of religion. And then also in Daniel chapter 6, Daniel was forbidden from praying to his God and was only allowed to pray to the king for 30 days. And that was the prohibiting of the free exercise of worship. So when the Pilgrims came to America, they established this Bill of Rights, which formed the first amendment to the United States Constitution. And they said that Congress, which is the legislative arm of the government, shall make no law establishing religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So they wanted a state where there was a separation of church and state, because they were coming from Europe, where the Roman Catholic Church during the Dark Ages held sway and used the arm of the state to persecute those persons who they branded as heretic if they were not in line or in agreement with the church's doctrines and teachings. The Dark Ages lasted from 538 AD to 1798. And the First Amendment to the US Constitution was signed on the 15th of December, 1791, 7 years before the Dark Ages ended. So it is around the same time period that this was happening. So while woman was fleeing in the wilderness, this was happening in America. Let's now look at the phrase, the earth opened their mouth and swallowed. That phrase occurs only 4 times in scripture. And you can read about this in Numbers chapter 16, reading from verse 1 to 5, 8 to 15, and 20 to 32. So on screen, you are seeing the 3 places here where this exact phrase, the earth opened their mouth and swallowed them up, where it occurs. It occurs in Numbers 16:32, Numbers 26 verse 10, Deuteronomy 11 verse 6, which is a repeat of that incident which took place in Numbers 16. And it also occurred in Revelation 12 verse 16, which is what we're looking at right now. Numbers chapter 16, reading from verse 1 to 5. Korah's rebellion. Now Korah, the son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Peleth, sons of Reuben, took men. And they rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of the assembly, famous in the congregation, men of renown. And they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said unto them, Ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and Jehovah is among them. Wherefore then lift up yourselves above the congregation of Jehovah. And Moses heard it and fell upon his face. And he spake unto Korah and unto his company, saying, Even tomorrow Jehovah will show who are his and who is holy, and will cause him to come near unto him, even him whom he had chosen, will he cause to come near unto him. And then verse 8, Moses said unto Korah, Hear I pray you, ye sons of Levi, seemeth it but a small thing unto you, that the God of Israel hath separated you from among the congregation of Israel, to bring you near to himself, to do the service of the tabernacle of Jehovah, and to stand before the congregation to minister unto them. And he hath brought thee near to him, and all thy brethren, the sons of Levi, with thee, and seek ye the priesthood also. So what they were trying to do here, viewers, they were trying to usurp Aaron's position. Aaron was the high priest, and they were trying to usurp his position. So that's why they tried to rebel against Moses and Aaron. For which cause both thou and all thy company are gathered together against Jehovah. And what is Aaron that ye murmur against him? And Moses sent to call Dathan and Abiram and the sons of Eliab, which said, We will not come up. And Moses was very wroth, and said unto Jehovah, Respect not thou their offering. I have not taken one ass from them, neither have I hurt one of them. And Moses said unto Korah, Be thou and all thy company before Jehovah, thou and they and Aaron tomorrow. And Korah gathered all the congregation against them unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the glory of Jehovah appeared unto all the congregation. And Jehovah spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, Separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. And they fell upon their faces and said, O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and wilt thou be wroth with all the congregation? And Jehovah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the congregation, saying, Get you up from about the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And Moses rose up and went unto Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. And he spake unto the congregation, saying, Depart, I pray you, from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing of theirs, lest ye be consumed in all their sins. So they got up from the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram on every side. And Dathan and Abiram came out and stood in the door of their tents, and their wives and their sons and their children. And Moses said, Hereby ye shall know that Jehovah had sent me to do all these works, for I have not done them of mine own mind. If these men die the common death of all men, or if they be visited after the visitation of all men, then Jehovah hath not sent me. But if Jehovah make a new thing, and notice now, and the earth open their mouth and swallow them up with all that appertain unto them, and they go down quick into the pit, then ye shall understand that these men have provoked Jehovah. And it came to pass, as he had made an end of speaking all these words, that the ground clave asunder that was under them, and the earth opened their mouth and swallowed them up, and their houses, and all the men that appertained unto Korah, and all their goods. They and all that appertained to them went down alive into the pit, and the earth closed upon them, and they perished from among the people. So this is the first incident where the scripture uses that exact phrase, the earth opened their mouth and swallowed them up. It was in reference to Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, the three gang leaders who rebelled against Moses and Aaron's authority, and who tried to usurp Aaron's position as the high priest. So similarly, the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up. The same thing happened with the flood that the dragon cast out of his mouth. The earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood and put an end to the persecution of the woman. So here, the final place where that exact phrase is mentioned is Revelation 12, verse 16, where it says, the earth opened their mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. So Korah and his gang tried to usurp the priesthood of Aaron and were swallowed up by the pit when the earth opened their mouth, and the very same thing happened to the papacy in history. Swallowed up simply means death. So Revelation 12, verse 16 is speaking about the time that the Roman Catholic Church received its deadly wound in 1798, which brought an end to papal persecution in the Dark Ages. This happened during the French Revolution, which lasted between 1789 to 1799, when atheism, secularism, and the age of reason held sway. France rejected Catholicism and all religion, and even burned the Bible in the streets of Paris. France embraced debauchery and licentiousness, along with atheistic philosophies, which is why it was linked with Sodom and Egypt in the scriptures. And notice what the scriptures tell us about this particular time period. Revelation 11, verse 3, 7, and 8 says this, and I will give power unto my two witnesses. This is referring to the word of God, the law and the prophets. And they shall prophesy 1,260 days clothed in sackcloth. You realize again, it is the same time period, the period of 1,260 years. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit, which is France, shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. And their dead bodies, meaning the bodies of the scriptures, shall lie in the street of the great city, because they were burned in the streets of Paris, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. Sodom was known for its homosexual tendencies, and its sexual immorality. Egypt was known for its atheistic outlook, because you remember the time when Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, the God of the Hebrews has told me to tell you, let my people go. And Pharaoh's response, Pharaoh believed in many gods, but he did not believe in the one true God. He said, who is Jehovah that I should obey him? I know not Jehovah, neither will I obey him and let Israel go. He had no regard for the God of the universe. And that is why his land was visited by 10 plagues. They glorified the goddess of reason. It was a time of enlightenment, age of enlightenment during that time in France, when the earth opened its mouth and swallowed the flood that the dragon cast out of his mouth. This is speaking specifically when the papacy received its deadly wound. And this happened when Napoleon's general, Louis Alexander Berthier, invaded Rome and defeated the papal army. Berthier took Pope Pius VI prisoner on February 20, 1798, after he refused to renounce his temporal powers. And he was led into captivity, where he died a year and 6 months later on 29th of August, 1799. So when Pope Pius VI lost his political power in 1798, the fourth beast of Daniel 7 received a deadly wound and fell back into the sea. And you are seeing on screen a picture of Pope Pius VI, who was the reigning pope at the time when Louis Alexander Berthier took him captive and dealt the papacy a deadly wound. They lost their political power. So only the church part of the state continued. So in looking at the fourth beast of Daniel 7, we realize that this fourth beast had 3 stages of existence. It started with pagan Rome, which lasted from 168 BC to 476 AD, and this was during the time of the Caesars. Second phase of the fourth beast was the division of the Western Roman Empire, which was represented by the 10 toes or 10 horns. And this was when the barbarian tribes took over the disintegrated Roman Empire. And the third stage of the fourth beast of Daniel 7 was papal Rome, which lasted and held sway during the 1260 years period from 530 AD to 1798. So Daniel 7 gives us a description of 4 beasts: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, that rose and fell into the sea, because that's exactly where the striving was taking place. And just to give a recap of what we read in Daniel 7 verse 2 and 3, it says this: Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea. So that's where the battle for supremacy was taking place, upon the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. So all of these beasts came up, as you can see behind me, came up from the sea. Babylon came up first, and they ruled. They were overcome and defeated by the Medo-Persian army. So when Babylon was defeated, they fell back into the sea. Medo-Persia reigned for a while, and then Greece took over and conquered Medo-Persia, and Medo-Persia fell back into the sea, because the battle was taking place upon the Great Sea. And then Rome conquered the Greeks, and Greece fell back into the sea. And Rome had 3 stages, which are just outlined. Pagan Rome, during the time of the Caesars, the division of the Western Roman Empire, when the barbarian tribes, the 10 barbarian tribes, took over. And then you had papal Rome, which held sway during the papal domination between 538 AD and 1798. And then in 1798, the fourth beast, papal Rome, received a deadly wound when Pope Pius VI lost his political power, his temporal powers. He was led into captivity, where he died in 1799. So in Daniel 7, it was prophesied that the little horn shall persecute the saints for a specific time period, referred to as a time, times, and the dividing of a time. And that is equivalent to 1260 years, which culminated in 1798. Notice what we are told in Daniel 7:25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High. This is the little horn power. And shall wear out the saints of the Most High, which is the persecution, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until. So this power, the little horn power, will reign until a time, times, and a dividing of time. So they reign from 538 AD to 1798, which is a period of 1,260 years. And their power would be broken because the Bible says they shall reign until 1,260 years. No longer than that. So Revelation 12 also ends with the fall of the papacy, which takes us to Revelation 13, with the rise of the beast from the sea, which the devil will use in a special way to accomplish his purpose in the last days of Earth's history. So let's now look at Revelation 13, the beast from the sea. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So John now described the Antichrist power of the Roman Catholic Church rising back up out of the sea. So Revelation 12 ends with the earth opening her mouth and swallowing up the flood that the dragon cast out of his mouth. I've established that this flood represents an army of ungodly men, which the Roman Catholic Church used to persecute the woman or the church during the Dark Ages. The earth opening up her mouth was the deadly wound being given to the papacy. So here, the papacy received a deadly wound. The papacy was not dead. The church arm of the state still existed, but they had no political power. So now in Revelation 13, verse 1, the Roman Catholic Church is now rising back up out of the sea. Notice what you are seeing on screen. This is what John saw in his vision. The beast had 7 heads and 10 horns. It had the body of a leopard, and we know that a leopard cannot change its spots. Revelation 13 gives an allusion to baptism, with the beast rising up out of the sea. We know that baptism represents death, burial, and resurrection of this new beast, or the rise of a new kingdom. However, as stated before, this is not a true conversion of this beast, because this beast did not die to self. It did not die. It only received a deadly wound, but it's now rising back up to prominence. And we know that a beast represents a kingdom. So the rise up of this beast out of the sea is symbolic of the rise of this new kingdom. This beast in Revelation 13 is not the same as the 4th beast of Daniel 7. And I repeat, this beast in Revelation 13 is not the same as the 4th beast of Daniel 7, but an amalgamation of all 4 beasts. Hence, the beast had 7 heads from each of the 4 beasts, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. The beast is a different beast, but it had similar character traits as all 4 beasts that were before it, that we looked at in Daniel chapter 7. So here you can see the 4 separate beasts that Daniel saw in his vision. There were 4 separate and distinct beasts. He had Babylon, he saw a lion with eagle's wings, then he saw a bear, which represented Medo-Persia, then Greece, a leopard with 4 heads with the wings of a fowl, and the 4th beast that he saw represented Rome, which had 10 horns. This beast had 1 head and 10 horns. So this is what Daniel saw. Daniel saw 4 separate beasts. However, John saw 1 beast having 7 heads and 10 horns with the characteristics of all 4 beasts. So Daniel saw 4 separate beasts. John saw 1 beast with 7 heads. You had the head of a lion, the head of a bear, that's 2, the 4-headed leopard, that's 6, and the dragon, that's 7. So you have 7 heads and 10 horns. So this is what John was seeing. John was seeing a composite beast. 7 heads, 10 horns, body of a leopard. Leopard cannot change its spots. Feet of a bear. And if you notice in Daniel 7 verse 12, we read about this verse which states, as concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away. The other 3 beasts before the 4th beast, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and time. Because what happened when a nation conquered another nation? They incorporated and amalgamated and assimilated all the best qualities from that conquered beast or nation. So when Babylon took over any nation, they took the best and the brightest. So much so that Daniel and his friends were taken to Babylon. When Medo-Persia took over Babylon, they incorporated the best qualities of Babylon. So Babylon qualities could still be found in the Medo-Persian Empire. When Greece conquered Medo-Persia, Babylon, Medo-Persia qualities could still be seen in Greece. So when Rome conquered Greece, it had all the qualities of Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece as a part of it. So that is why the verse says that as for the rest of the beasts, their lives prolonged for a season, because their characteristic traits could be seen in the 4th beast. And this new beast that we are reading about in Revelation 13 is an amalgamation of all 4 beasts that were before it, which is why I said it cannot be the same beast. Because this beast has 7 heads. It had the head of a lion, it had the head of a bear, it had the 4 heads of the leopard, and it had the head of the dragon with 10 horns. So all these 4 kingdoms can be found in this beast from the sea mentioned in Revelation 13, because it's a composite beast of all other beasts that were before it. So that must be made very clear. This is the image that John saw. He saw this beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, meaning he saw a nation, a kingdom, with all the characteristics of all the previous beasts or kingdoms that were before it. And when it says here in Daniel 7 verse 12, as concerning the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, because as each one conquered other dominion was taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and time. So viewers, this beast is a composite kingdom which will possess the same character traits of the previous 4 kingdoms of Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. Let's now examine the characteristics of these kingdoms. Babylon was known for its idolatry, and in particular, sun worship. Notice Jeremiah 50 verse 1. The word that Jehovah spake against Babylon, against the land of the Chaldeans by Jeremiah the prophet. And verse 38 says this. The entire chapter is actually about Babylon. But verse 38 says, a drought is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up, for it is the land of graven images, and they are mad upon their idols. Babylon was known for its idolatry, which is contrary to the law of God, as well as its enforcement of worship in Daniel 3, which landed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the burning fire furnace. So Babylon was known for its idolatry, and in particular, its enforcement of worship. And we looked at that in Daniel chapter 3. Medo-Persia was known for making decrees and laws that cannot change. Daniel 6 verse 8, Daniel 6 verse 12, and Esther 8 verse 8 tells us about the laws of the Medes and Persians. Daniel 6 verse 8 says this, Know, O king, establish a decree and sign the writing, that it be not changed, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which alter it not. So that was what the Medes and Persians were known for, making laws and decrees that cannot change. Greece was known for always seeking after wisdom, as well as its rapid rise to power, which was represented by the leopard with 4 wings of a fowl. Notice what we are told in Acts 17, verse 21 about the Greeks. For all the Athenians and the strangers which were there spent their time in nothing else but either to tell or to hear something new. 1 Corinthians 1, verse 22 says this, for the Jews require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom. Rome was known for its persecuting power in history, both in the time of Jesus, when pagan Rome ruled, as well as during the Dark Ages when papal Rome ruled. Therefore, when all these characteristics are combined, it will reveal the true nature of the beast in Revelation 13. This beast, or this kingdom, will establish a law which is contrary to the law of God, and will enforce worship through means of a death decree. This law will be declared to be immutable, meaning unchangeable, and will be supported by human wisdom and reasoning. So this is what God is telling us about this beast, this composite beast, making up qualities from Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. This beast will seek to enforce worship. It will establish a law that is contrary to the law of God. They will enforce this decree by means of death, and they will make it so that this law cannot be changed. Revelation 13, verse 3. John then tells us what else he saw about this beast. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Revelation 13, 1-3 is describing the revived kingdom of papal Rome, or the papacy, with the same traits as all the 4 beasts that were before it. But when John saw this beast from the sea, its deadly wound was healed. So when he saw this beast fully healed, having back its full power, just as it did during the Dark Ages. So John was seeing this beast when it was fully healed. Because notice what the verse says. He saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. It was healed, was its past tense. So when John saw this beast, his wound was healed. Therefore, viewers, this beast was alive. That was during the 1260 years, during the Dark Ages. It was not in 1798 when it was wounded, when it received that deadly wound, and then now is after it's rising back up out of the sea. So Revelation 13, verse 3 is telling us about this reviving of the papacy, and this occurred in 1929. So the wound started to be healed in 1929, but when John saw this wound, it was fully healed. The deadly wound of the papacy started to be healed on February 11, 1929, with the signing of the Lateran Treaty by Cardinal Gaspari on behalf of Pope Pius XI and Benito Mussolini, Prime Minister of Italy, on behalf of King Victor Emmanuel III. The Lateran Accord was a political treaty that recognized the full sovereignty of the Holy See and Vatican as an independent state within Italy, after Rome, the last of the papal states, was seized on September 20, 1870. On screen, you are seeing Benito Mussolini, far right, reading his credentials prior to the signing of the Lateran Treaty on behalf of King Victor Emmanuel III. Cardinal Gaspari is seated, also signed on behalf of Pope Pius XI, and this signing took place on February 11, 1929. Here you are seeing Cardinal Pietro Gaspari signing the Lateran Treaty. And next picture here is Prime Minister Benito Mussolini signing the Lateran Treaty. What you're also seeing on screen here, this is the golden quill that was used to sign the treaty. These are the seals of both the Prime Minister and Cardinal Gaspari. This is Benito Mussolini's signature, and this is Pietro Cardinal Gaspari's signature. And here you are seeing the date and the place where this signing took place. Roma, 11 febbraio 1929. That's 11th of February, 1929. And this is the newspaper article that was written on that day. Vatican and Italy signed pact, recreating a papal state. So notice, it's recreating a church state. Papacy or papal has to do with church. 60 years of enmity ended. Notice as well the newspaper articles of that day. Let's look at this one by Arnaldo Cortesi. Rome, February 11. The Pope is again an independent sovereign ruler, as he was throughout the Middle Ages, though his temporal realm, established today, is the most microscopic independent state in the world and probably the smallest in all history. While a great gathering of priests and ecclesiastical students outside the windows of the Lateran Palace sang Te Deums in chorus and shouted, "Long live Pius," or Pope and King. Notice that Pius is called their Pope and King because, as I mentioned in the previous presentation, the Pope is both a king and a priest. And groups of fascisti standing on the opposite side of the piazza cried, "Viva Mussolini! Viva Italy!" Cardinal Gaspari, Papal Secretary of State, and Premier Mussolini solemnly signed a treaty and 2 supplemental documents bringing about the reconciliation of the 2 long-standing foes, church and state. So here they acknowledge that this was now a unification of church and state because the Vatican was now restored to being a political state, an independent state. Enmity ended, hostility gave place to friendliness, and a new era of amity and internal peace dawned when Cardinal Gaspari shook hands with Signor Mussolini after signing the treaty soon after noon today. A few minutes later, the Eternal City, which Rome is called, was gay with Italian and papal flags, flown from almost every window in celebration of the newfound unity. And notice this newspaper article on the same day. Notice this heading, "Heal Wound of Many Years." Vatican again at peace with Italy after a long quarrel. Cardinal leaves sickbed to participate. Warmly greets Premier. Chimes of St. John Lateran peal as signatories wield gold-quill pen. Notice this article that was written in San Francisco Chronicle. Mussolini and Gaspari signed historic Roman pact. And it says here, the Roman question tonight was a thing of the past, and the Vatican was at peace with Italy. In affixing the autographs to this memorable document, healing the wound, extreme cordiality was displayed on both sides. San Francisco Chronicle, February 11, 1929. So notice, viewers, that it is using similar language to the scriptures. Healing the wound. John saw the deadly wound being healed. However, it is very important to note that even though newspaper articles use a similar language to the scripture, the deadly wound of the papacy is not yet fully healed as I speak. The deadly wound is not yet fully healed as at July 20, 2023. It is not yet fully healed. The deadly wound will be healed in the future by means of miracles, and I'll explain that a little later from now. In scripture, wounds are healed in 2 ways, via medicine and miracles. And if you look at 2 Kings 20, verse 1 to 11, it speaks about when Hezekiah was sick and he was told by Isaiah to use a clump of figs to put on his boils so that he would recover. 2 Kings 20, verse 1 to 11. Hezekiah's illness and recovery. In those days, Hezekiah was sick unto death, and the prophet Isaiah the son of Amoz came to him and said unto him, Thus saith Jehovah, set thine house in order, for thou shalt die and not live. Then he turned his face to the wall and prayed unto Jehovah, saying, I beseech thee, O Jehovah, remember now how I have walked before thee in truth and with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in thy sight. And Hezekiah wept sore. And it came to pass, afore Isaiah was gone out into the middle court, that the word of Jehovah came to him, saying, Turn again and tell Hezekiah, the captain of my people, Thus saith Jehovah, the God of David thy father, I have heard thy prayer, I have seen thy tears. Behold, I will heal thee. On the third day thou shalt go up unto the house of Jehovah, and I will add unto thy days 15 years. And I will deliver thee and this city out of the hand of the king of Assyria. And I will defend this city for mine own name's sake, for my own sake, and for my servant David's sake. And Isaiah said, Take a lump of figs. And they took and laid it on the boil, and he recovered. So here we see that a lump of figs was used as medication to put on Hezekiah's boil, and he recovered. And Hezekiah said unto Isaiah, What shall be the sign that Jehovah will heal me, and that I shall go up into the house of Jehovah the third day? And Isaiah said, This sign shall thou have of Jehovah, that Jehovah will do the thing that he has spoken. Shall the shadow go down 10 degrees or go back 10 degrees? And Hezekiah answered, It is a light thing for the shadow to go down 10 degrees. Nay, but let the shadow return backward 10 degrees. And Isaiah the prophet cried unto Jehovah, and he brought the shadow 10 degrees backward, by which it had gone down in the dial of Ahaz. So there you see that one way in which wounds can be healed was through medicine or medication, or the second way, which is most common in the scriptures, is through miracles. So let's now look at how Jesus often used miracles to heal people of various diseases and ailments. And oftentimes, or most of the times, if not all the times, this always resulted in the people being amazed and believing in him as the Messiah. The Greek word translated as signs and miracles is semeion. It occurs 77 times. It is translated 50 times as sign, 23 times as miracles, 3 times as wonder. It is a sign, mark, token, that by which a person or thing is distinguished from others and is known. It speaks of miracles and wonders by which God authenticates the men sent by him, or by which men prove that the cause they are pleading is God's. So semeion speaks to supernatural miracles. Notice what happened when Jesus used miracles to heal people. John 2:11, this beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee, and manifested forth his glory, and his disciples believed on him. So what I'm showing here is that every time that Jesus performed a miracle, it resulted in people believing on him. John 2:23, now when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover in the feast day, many believed in his name. Why? When they saw the miracles which he did. John 4:40, then said Jesus unto him, except ye see signs and wonders, ye will not believe. So clearly, it is when people see signs and wonders that they believe. John 6:2, and a great multitude followed him. Why? Because they saw his miracles which he did on them that were diseased. John 6:14, then those men, when they had seen the miracle that Jesus did, said, this is of a truth that prophet that should come into the world. So by seeing the miracles, they accepted that Jesus was that prophet. John 7:31, and many of the people believed on him and said, when Christ cometh, will he do more miracles than these, which this man had done? Not realizing that this was actual Christ who was actually performing these miracles. John 11:47, this was when Jesus resurrected Lazarus from the dead. Notice what happened when these men heard what Jesus had done. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council and said, what do we? For this man doeth many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. Therefore, viewers, miracles lead to belief, because seeing is believing. In the same way that Jesus performed miracles, which resulted in people believing in him as a Messiah, the devil will also appear and impersonate Christ, and will work signs and wonders which will deceive people in the last days. This is very important for people to understand. The devil will appear in the last days and impersonate Jesus Christ. And he will work signs and wonders and will deceive people as a result. However, Jesus warned the disciples and all the world about Satan's plans and his devices in the last days. Note what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 24 when he spoke about the signs of his return. And he was sitting upon the Mount of Olives. The disciples came unto him privately, saying, "Tell us, what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world?" That was a question that they asked him, one of the questions. And Jesus answered and said unto them, first thing he said to them, take heed that no man deceive you. Why? For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. So Jesus warned us that persons, and he was speaking specifically of the devil, will come saying that he is Christ and shall deceive many. Matthew 24, verse 23, Jesus went on to say, then if any man shall say unto you, lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show what? Great signs and wonders, miracles, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. So viewers, the devil will also counterfeit the second coming of Christ. And Jesus warned us about this as well. Matthew 24, verse 26 and 27, Jesus said this, wherefore, if they shall say unto you, behold, he is in the desert, speaking about Jesus. If they say that Jesus is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, if he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So Jesus here tells us that when he comes, all eyes will be able to see him. So no one will need to tell you that he's in the desert or he's in the secret chamber, because all eyes will see him. But the devil will come and will try to counterfeit the second coming, claiming to be Christ. So viewers, the healing of the deadly wound will result in the world wandering after the beast, and this will lead to the worship of the dragon and the beast. So that is what will happen when the deadly wound is fully healed. It will be healed by means of miracles. The devil will perform miracles along with his agents to deceive people into worshiping the beast and himself, the dragon. Notice what Revelation 13 verse 3 says. What will happen after the deadly wound is healed? And his deadly wound was healed, and what happened afterwards? And all, not some, all the world wandered after the beast. Just looked at what wandering is all about. It's about miracles being performed and people believing these miracles. And notice what happened after people believe these miracles. So they will believe that the devil is Christ, and they'll believe that the devil is the one that is healing the diseases of people, and they worship the dragon, who is the devil, which gave power unto the beast, and we're going to look at that word power, and they worship the beast, who is the papacy, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? So the Bible tells us here that as a result of the miracles that the devil will perform, it will lead people into believing that he is Christ, and that will lead them to worship the dragon and the beast. And how will he accomplish this? Because the dragon, who is the devil, will give power unto the beast. So notice what we are told. Notice that Revelation 13 verse 4 clearly states that people will worship the dragon, who is Satan, which gave power unto the beast. Notice verse 4, they worship the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. The Greek word translated as power is exousia. It occurs 103 times in the scriptures. It means power. It is translated as power 69 times, authority 29 times. It means the power of authority, influence, the power of rule or government, the power of him whose will and commands must be submitted to by others and obeyed. Universally, authority over mankind. So the dragon will give the beast universal power over mankind. So the verse tells us that the dragon gave power to the beast, and the giving of this power will lead to the beast having worldwide dominion over the earth. Notice as well Strong's definition of exousia. It is delegated influence, authority, jurisdiction. Notice how exousia is also used in scripture to denote the ability to heal the sick and perform miracles. Matthew 10 verse 1 says this, and this is Jesus. And when he had called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power, same word, exousia, Strong's G 1849. So Jesus gave his disciples power. And what kind of power? Power against unclean spirits, to cast them out, and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of diseases. The parallel verse uses Greek word dunamis, which also means power to perform miracles. Luke 9 verse 1 uses dunamis for power and exousia for authority. Then he called his 12 disciples together and gave them power, which is dunamis, and authority, which is exousia, over all devils and to cure diseases. So dunamis occurs 120 times in the Greek scriptures. It is translated as power 77 times, miracle 7 times. Dunamis, it means miraculous power, usually by implication a miracle itself. So the dragon gave the beast his power, and that is his power to perform miracles. So the devil will also grant his followers the power to perform miracles in order to deceive. Notice the difference between how God operates and how the devil operates. In Acts chapter 8, verse 5 onwards, then Philip went down to the city of Samaria and preached Christ unto them. And the people with one accord gave heed unto those things which Philip spake, hearing and seeing the miracles which he did. For unclean spirits, crying with loud voice, came out of many that were possessed with them, and many taken with palsies, and that were lame were healed. And there was a great joy in that city. But notice the contrast now. So that was what Philip did by the power of God. Notice Satan's agent. But there was a certain man called Simon, which before time in the same city used sorcery, that's witchcraft, and bewitched the people of Samaria, giving out that himself was some great one, to whom they all gave heed. They believed him from the least to the greatest, saying, this man is the great power of God. So what he was doing, he was using sorcery, and he was deceiving and bewitching the people. And the people considered it to be the great power of God. And to him they had regard, because that of long time he had bewitched them with sorceries. So Simon was clearly an agent of the devil, and he used sorcery, which is magic, to bewitch or deceive the people. The Greek word translated as sorcery is magia, which is the use of magical arts. It occurs, this word, Strong's G 3095, occurs once, and it is translated as sorcery, which is witchcraft, magical arts. The Greek word translated as bewitch is existemi. It occurs 17 times. It means to amaze. It means to wonder. So when it says all the world wonder after the beast, it is because the beast has cast a spell over the people. It is deceptions that the beast will use that will cause people to wonder. So this Greek word, existemi, means to amaze, to astonish, throw into wonderment. So the devil will accomplish the healing of the deadly wound, which is the restoration of the beast's persecuting power through the use of miracles. And notice what the scriptures tell us about this in Revelation 16, verse 13 and 14. And I saw 3 unclean spirits, like frogs, come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. So here we are seeing a threefold union of the devil, the papacy, and apostate Protestantism. The dragon is the devil, the beast is the papacy, and the false prophets is apostate Protestantism. And what are these 3 unclean spirit like frogs? Revelation 16 verse 14 tells us they are the spirits of devils, demons, working miracles which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world to deceive them and to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. The very mention of frogs is reminiscent of what happened in Egypt when Moses and Aaron performed miracles before Pharaoh, and then his magicians counterfeited those miracles, which served to deceive Pharaoh and to harden his heart. So these are the 10 plagues that affected Egypt. The first plague was water turning into blood. Pharaoh and his magicians and sorcerers were able to counterfeit that one. The second and final miracle that they were able to counterfeit was the frogs. So when God brought frogs upon the land, they were able to counterfeit it. But this was the last miracle that they were able to counterfeit. So when it says in the scriptures that frogs out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of false prophet, it is telling us that the devil will be using miracles and deceptions to deceive people. Notice what we are told about this incident about the frogs and how the devil was able to allow the magicians of Egypt to counterfeit the miracles of the frogs. And Jehovah spake unto Moses, say unto Aaron, stretch forth thine hand with thy rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up upon the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hands over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. And notice what happened. And the magicians did so with their enchantments, their sorceries, their magic, and brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt. So the plague of the frogs were the last miracle that the magicians of Egypt were able to counterfeit. Therefore, viewers, the devil will use miracles to convince and deceive the whole world in accepting the new world order. And once the beast has been fully healed, then the persecution of the saints will begin, similar to what happened during the Dark Ages. Notice what John tells us about what that time will be like, similar to what happened in the Dark Ages. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power, which is the performance of miracles, unto the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? And who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies. I'll get to what the scripture's definition is of blasphemy shortly. So John is then telling us about what happened in the Dark Ages, and that a similar thing will happen once the deadly wound is fully healed. And this beast will open his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints. Same thing happened during the Dark Ages. This beast will make war with the saints. Persecution will start. And to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. So this beast will have worldwide dominion, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life, the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. So viewers, in Daniel 7, the fourth beast initially had 10 horns, but 3 were uprooted, so it was now left with 7 horns. And then a little horn, which represented the papacy, came up in their place before the period of the 1260 years. That was the period of the Dark Ages from 538 AD to 1798. However, in Revelation 13, this new beast now has 10 horns again, which is another indication that the deadly wound has been healed. And this will result in the beast having worldwide dominion and control, as it did in the Dark Ages. So finally, let us look at what the scriptures, how the scriptures define blasphemy. And scriptures define blasphemy in 2 ways. First is when a mere mortal makes himself equal with God. And the second definition is when a mere mortal claims to have the power to forgive sins. Notice how they accuse Jesus of blasphemy, which gives us the definition of what blasphemy is. Mark 2, verse 3 to 7 speaks about a paralytic being healed. And they come unto him bringing one sick of the palsy, which was born of the 4. And when they could not come nigh unto him for the press, they uncovered the roof where he was. And when they had broken it up, they let down the bed wherein the sick of the palsy lay. When Jesus saw their faith, he said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, thy sins be forgiven thee. But there were certain of the scribes sitting there and reasoning in their hearts. And notice what they said. Why doth this man thus speak blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God only? So clearly, if a mere mortal claims to have the power to forgive sins, then that is blasphemy. And we know that the papacy have made blasphemous statements, and they have sought to usurp Christ's position as a mediator and the only man who can forgive sins, because they have had their confessional booths set up where persons come to confess their sins to them, and they have claimed to absolve them of their sins. But only Jesus Christ can forgive sins along with his Father. So the first definition is when a mere mortal claims to have the power to forgive sins. Jesus is not a mere mortal. Jesus is the divine Son of God, and he has been delegated authority as the Son of Man to forgive sins, which is why he said, Son, thy sins be forgiven thee. The second definition is when a mere mortal makes himself equal with God. Then came the Jews round about him and said unto him, How long dost thou make us to doubt? If thou be the Christ, or Christ means the Son of God, the anointed one, the Messiah. If thou be the Christ, tell us plainly. Jesus answered them, I told you, and ye believe not. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness of me. Then Jesus dropped the bombshell. I and my Father are one, because they share the same divine nature. Then the Jews took up stones again to stone him. Jesus answered them, Many good works have I showed you from my Father. For which of those works do ye stone me? The Jews answered him, saying, For a good work we stone thee not, but for blasphemy, and because that thou being a man makest thyself God. So they agree that blasphemy is when a mere man makes himself equal with God. And then notice John 10:36. Jesus quickly corrected their thinking. He made it very clear that he was not claiming to be the God. Notice what he said. Say ye of him whom the Father had sanctified and sent into the world, thou blasphemest, because I said, I am the Son of God. So Jesus made it very clear that he was not claiming to be God, but he was simply claiming to be the Son of God. And because he is the Son of God, he shares his Father's divine nature, which makes him equal with God. And the Father has made him equal with himself. So Jesus Christ is equal with the Father. But Jesus Christ is not the God of the Bible. His Father is the God of the Bible. But Jesus said, I and my Father are one, because they share the same divine nature, and they share the same spirit. So this, viewers, is a quick look at Revelation 13, the first part of Revelation 13, which looks at the beast from the sea, the papacy. And we have seen that John, when he saw this beast, he saw it at the stage when it was fully healed. As it is right now, as I speak to you, on the 20th of July, 2023, this beast from the sea wound is not yet fully healed. It will be fully healed when the devil gives this beast his power to perform miracles, and people will be deceived. And when the devil claims to be Christ, then the whole world will wander after the beast. And it is at that time that the beast will receive back its power that it had during the Dark Ages. As it is right now, Roman Catholic Church system is not a persecuting power like it was during the 1260-year period. The wound is being healed, but it is not yet healed as at this point in time. But when it is healed, the beast will persecute the saints. And this will take place during the Great Tribulation. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and may God continue to bless us so that we are not deceived by this beast who will be given power to perform miracles in an attempt to deceive, if it were possible, the very elect. Have yourselves a wonderful day.